She jumped down. Oh, she was like on a windowsill.
Right.
We was in Vegas. She said, "Come on, I'm talking to her." She jumped down. She was like, "Duh, duh, duh." And I'm like, "Wait, what is she doing?" That stuff, that's me and Jay-Z stuff. This ain't got nothing to do with you, girl. Don't come
So
on.
Hov wasn't there?
I'm talking to Jay.
You're talking to Jay.
As soon as I talked to Jay, she jumped down, came over. I said, "Oh shit, look at."
So what did B say, or she was just staring at you?
Nah, she came like she was ready.
She
like
ready.
I thought something was gonna happen. I just looked at Jay. He was looking. He was like, I said, "Yo, yeah, all right, whatever." I don't know. Because I'm just saying what's up.
Mm-hmm. For almost an entire year now, 50 Cent has been openly and relentlessly trolling Jay-Z over his silence surrounding the growing controversy tied to Diddy, and hasn't been subtle at all.
I think he would have done that if that was 50 Cent. No one's scared of 50 Cent.
Well, you know what I mean.
I'm just, I want everyone to be clear. No one's scared of 50 Cent. So I just think that that's what he believed. I think it was rude. I thought it was inappropriate. Man, I told him as much. But I don't think he was wrong.
Trevor Nelson.
I think he was responding to you saying that Kanye would be scared if you were on.
Kanye would not take a trophy from me. Neither Jay-Z.
Right.
Neither one of them.
What would you have?
No, we'd have had an altercation right there. When he's saying he's not afraid of 50 Cent, why would you have to make that clear when no one's ever asked me if I'm afraid of Jay-Z?
While most people in the industry either avoided the topic completely or issued carefully worded non-statements, 50 chose the opposite route and made Jay-Z's absence part of the joke. He framed it as avoidance, as hibernation, as strategic silence that felt less like dignity and more like fear. And if there's one thing 50 Cent is good at, it's identifying moments where silence can be weaponized against someone's public image. One of the first viral shots 50 took was when he posted an edited image of a milk carton with Jay-Z's face slapped onto it, placed exactly where missing children ads usually go, captioning it with something along the lines of "Anybody seeing Jay?" and laughing emojis, followed by jokes about Puff trying to call him and getting no answer. It was childish, petty, and completely intentional. The post wasn't really about Diddy at all. It was about framing Jay-Z as someone who disappears when things get uncomfortable, someone who vanishes instead of standing on business. That framing stuck because 50 kept pressing the same narrative again and again. But the most ridiculous, and at the same time the most effective troll came later.
It was random at the time.
Yeah.
Came from nowhere.
He probably didn't mean it.
Fifth also noted that he was more popular outside the United States.
In fact, his largest selling record sold 430-something thousand copies. My largest selling records, plural, 2 of them sold 5 million. That's Get Rich or Die Trying and The Massacre. You know, so it's a huge difference in who we are with each other internationally. Let them be fooled in America and think there's a competition there, because America can be purchased. We can buy it with marketing dollars. The rest of the world, there's not enough marketing dollars to go around.
In addition, in another interview, 50 said Hov is a punk who avoids beefs.
Right now, he's in a real safe space. He created this real safe aura.
When 50 posted a photo of Jay-Z and captioned it by saying Jay was in hibernation, hiding until the Diddy situation blew over, joking that there would be no brunch, no lunch, no dinner appearances, and that 50 himself was outside while Jay was nowhere to be found. On the surface, it was just another joke. Underneath, it was a direct challenge to Jay-Z's cultivated image as the untouchable elder statesman of hip-hop, the billionaire mogul who supposedly stands above industry mess.
Nigga just sold like 4 million, got something to live for. Don't want a nigga putting 4 through that Bentley coupe.
50 was essentially saying that when real heat shows up, that image collapses. The tension between 50 Cent and Jay-Z didn't start with Diddy, though. According to 50, there's always been an undercurrent of dislike, a quiet resistance coming from Jay's side that never fully disappeared.
You know, I remember one time walking in the studio and it was like a small gap and bleak beans. Everybody was in there and I was like, man, I'm telling you, man, y'all got a chance right now. Just flood it, put out a lot of music because 50 Cent is coming. And, you know, 4 months later, in the club hit and it was over. And it was just like, okay, now everybody got to sit on the sidelines and wait this tidal wave out.
You'll find me in the club, bottles full of bub. Mama, I got what you need if you need to fill up.
One of the moments 50 frequently points to is the 2022 Super Bowl halftime show, a performance that became historic, not just because of its lineup, but because of how close 50 came to being excluded entirely. During later interviews, it was revealed that Eminem had made it clear he would not perform unless 50 Cent was included. Eminem reportedly told organizers that if his longtime friend wasn't on that stage, then neither was he. When that story came out, it rubbed 50 the wrong way how Jay-Z spoke about it publicly. Jay reportedly referred to Eminem as the white guy during the decision-making process, which instantly caught 50's attention. To 50, that phrasing wasn't accidental. He questioned why Jay would reduce Eminem, arguably one of the most influential and successful rappers in history, to something as dismissive as the white guy, instead of acknowledging him as a legend or even as the biggest rap artist in the world. In 50's mind, that moment revealed underlying resentment, not just towards Eminem's leverage, but towards 50 himself. 50 didn't let that slide either. He mocked Jay's appearance in a follow-up post, making fun of his Jean-Michel Basquiat-inspired hairstyle and joking that Jay was running around looking like a gay painter, deliberately poking at Jay's fashion-forward image and his attempts to align himself with high art and elite culture. It wasn't about the hairstyle. It was about mocking Jay's transformation from street rapper to art world billionaire, implying that he lost touch with the culture he claims to represent. Later on, 50 revisited the Super Bowl situation with even more clarity.
Where was Jay-Z from 2003 to 2006? I sold 23 million records between 2003 and 2006.
Right.
He stopped making music, said, I'm gonna go be the president of a record company. I quit. We'll get back to what me and you got later, Fifth. I quit, time out. I'll come back to play later. Then he signed the Beyonce contract. I was like, yeah, men lie, women lie, numbers don't.
Men lie, women lie, numbers don't.
What's that, Joy? That shit is a tough one to beat.
Openly stating that Rock Nation, which Jay-Z controls, did not want him on that stage at all. According to 50, the only reason he performed was because Eminem refused to do the show without him. In his words, Rock Nation was essentially forced into a corner. If they excluded 50, they would lose Eminem entirely. And once that reality set in, the decision wasn't about preference anymore. It was about damage control. 50 wasn't billed, he wasn't announced, he was the surprise.
And you run up on stage when he's doing a little too much.
Yeah. He ain't like that. Yeah, he ain't like
You
that.
didn't like it? Tell
No,
me,
yeah.
tell me again what he said to you when you ran on the stage.
You had to come up here, huh?
That's so
Yeah.
great.
Because he was going to have a moment. So he had to share.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, nobody wants to give me credit for the positive things I do for the pop.
Because your intention was
Wasn't the best.
It wasn't the best, but good things result.
And to him, that confirmed everything he'd suspected for years. From 50's perspective, that moment exposed the real hierarchy behind the scenes. Jay-Z may curate the culture, but Eminem still had enough leverage to override the gatekeepers. And 50, by extension, proved he was still valuable enough to be fought over. That's why the resentment didn't fade afterwards.
Jay hated on you too, like he didn't want you as part of it. Is that true though?
Yeah.
For example,
It hardened. When 50 talks about Jay now, it's not just trolling. It's layered with old grievances, perceived slights, and a belief that Jay-Z would rather see him sidelined than celebrated. So when the Diddy situation exploded and Jay-Z stayed silent, 50 saw an opening.
The white guy called for 50 Cent. So I said, who's the white guy? I'm digging this Jimmy Iovine. And he said, no, Eminem called directly for 50. And he said,
That's his guy.
He said, I can't do it if I can't bring 50 up.
But that's his guy.
To him, it wasn't just about Diddy. It was about power, accountability, and who speaks when the stakes are high. He framed Jay's silence as confirmation of everything he already believed, that Jay-Z moves strategically, protects his alliances, and avoids controversy unless it benefits him. And because 50 thrives on confrontation, he turned that silence into a spectacle, dragging it into public view again and again until it became part of the narrative. At this point, the tension feels less like a feud and more like a philosophical divide. Jay-Z represents control, discretion, and elite positioning. 50 Cent represents chaos, pressure, and public accountability, even when it's messy. And as long as Jay continues to say nothing, 50 will continue to say everything. 50 Cent's complicated history with the Carters didn't stop at Jay-Z, though, because at one point even Beyonce ended up catching a stray. And that alone says a lot about how fearless or reckless, depending on who you ask, 50 has always been when it comes to speaking his mind. While most artists wouldn't dare to publicly question Beyonce's achievements, 50 didn't hesitate to do exactly that when the conversation shifted to awards, specifically the Grammys. Curtis Jackson, who himself won a Grammy in 2010 for Best Rap Performance by a duo or group for Crack a Bottle alongside Eminem and Dr. Dre, made it very clear that he doesn't value the award the way the industry pretends to. In his view, Grammys don't equal legacy, power, or even real respect. He framed them as symbolic trophies that don't translate into anything tangible, pointing out that he's never seen anyone in serious financial trouble try to sell a Grammy to survive, which to him proved that the award holds no real value beyond optics.
But where things got spicy is when 50 went a step further and implied that Beyonce's historic Grammy dominance might not be entirely organic. Without naming names directly, he suggested that someone close to her had influence within the Grammy committee, subtly planting the idea that her wins weren't just about music, but also about access and politics.
The big homie wanted to look like a gay painter.
What are we talking about here?
We're talking about Basquiat. He wants to look like a gay painter.
Coming from someone like 50, who has always positioned himself as anti-industry, anti-gatekeeper, and anti-elite approval, the comment wasn't just shade, it was a direct challenge to the credibility of one of the most decorated artists of all time. Beyonce, who had already accumulated more Grammys than anyone in history, did not take that lightly. According to 50, Beyonce was already irritated with him long before the Grammy comments, particularly after he publicly downplayed Jay-Z's global influence by claiming that Jay was primarily popular in the United States and that internationally, many people only recognized him as Beyonce's husband.
He and him was putting it together. Mm-hmm. So I think they still harbor some energy towards me.
Did you and Jay-Z ever have a conversation, or they're on different offices as far as like?
We don't need to talk about nothing.
That statement alone crossed the line, because while Jay-Z might tolerate being mocked, Beyonce does not play when it comes to diminishing her husband's stature. 50 later described a tense moment in Las Vegas where he was talking casually with Jay-Z when Beyonce suddenly inserted herself into the situation. He recalled her appearing visibly upset, stepping in with the energy of someone ready to defend territory, as if she thought things were about to escalate. In 50's telling, he had to mentally separate the situation, realizing this was no longer just him and Jay business. Beyonce wasn't there to joke, debate, or spar. She was there to protect the brand. That moment speaks volumes about the dynamic. Jay-Z often absorbs criticism quietly, choosing strategy over confrontation, but Beyonce moves differently.
If you look at Jay-Z's documentary, he points that moment out as a point that he beat me, right? How did he beat me if it was Kanye's? Because he was the president of Def Jam, and they did everything they could to make that work at that point. Mm-hmm. So it was like, we have to make the numbers.
Oh, you think it was fuzzy math?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. She represents not just herself, but an empire, and any perceived disrespect toward Jay becomes disrespect toward her as well. 50 recognized that instantly, backing off not because he was scared, but because he understood that the energy had shifted. It wasn't rap banter anymore, it was personal. The tension between 50 and Jay-Z, however, didn't begin in adulthood or in boardrooms or backstage encounters. It goes all the way back to 1999, when a hungry, unknown 50 Cent dropped How to Rob, a song that functioned as both a breakout record and a declaration of war.
He's a big man. He's too big to respond. I'm a big dick, you know, the one everybody on. You used to be from Mousy, nigga. Now you's a past the great proof.
On that track, 50 took shots at nearly every major rapper in the game, including Jay-Z, at a time when Jay was arguably the biggest name in hip-hop. For a newcomer to aim at someone of Jay's stature wasn't just bold, it was career-defining. And instead of ignoring him, Jay acknowledged the record, even hinting that he might respond. For 50, that acknowledgement alone was a win. Being noticed by the top dog validated his approach and put him on the map. They later crossed paths at Summer Jam, and while there was tension, there was also mutual awareness. 50 wasn't afraid of lyrical smoke, and Jay respected the audacity. 50 continued taking shots in later records like Be a Gentleman, flipping Jay's lines back at him, but Jay chose not to respond. That silence wasn't surrender, it was strategy. Not long after, everything changed. In 2000, 50 Cent was shot 9 times and survived, an event that could have ended his career entirely. Instead, it reshaped it. He was dropped from Columbia Records, blackballed, and forced to rebuild from scratch. While the industry turned its back on him, the streets leaned in. His mixtapes started circulating, and eventually Eminem and Dr. Dre took notice. Once they got involved, Jay reportedly recognized what was coming. In an interview years later, Jay admitted that he warned his camp that 50 was about to dominate, encouraging them to flood the market before the wave hit. 4 months later, In the Club dropped, and the game shifted permanently. By 2003, after the release of Get Rich or Die Trying, 50 Cent was the most powerful rapper in the world. Jay-Z, ever the strategist, saw opportunity instead of resistance. That's when they joined forces for the Rock the Mic tour, presenting a public image of unity and mutual respect. In interviews, 50 even praised Jay as the better MC, positioning himself as the new kid on the block. Their collaboration extended into business as well, with Jay offering 50 a G-Unit sneaker deal through Reebok. For a moment, it looked like rivalry had evolved into alliance. But that alliance didn't last. Jay stepped away from music for several years, focusing on executive roles and building his empire, while 50 dominated. According to 50, that gap wasn't accidental. He believes Jay stepped back because he couldn't compete musically at that moment and chose to reposition himself behind the scenes. When Jay eventually returned, it wasn't just as an artist, it was as a mogul, reinforced by his relationship with Beyonce. As 50 bluntly put it, numbers don't lie, and once Jay aligned himself fully with Beyonce's global star power, the game changed again. All of this context explains why 50 feels comfortable trolling both Jay-Z and Beyonce today. To him, this isn't random disrespect. It's the continuation of a decades-long power struggle between two men who represent opposite approaches to dominance. Jay-Z moves quietly, strategically, and institutionally. 50 moves loudly, confrontationally, and publicly. Beyonce's involvement only adds another layer because unlike Jay, she doesn't entertain the chaos, she shuts it down. And that contrast is exactly why 50 keeps poking the bear. As time went on, the tension kept resurfacing in new ways. In 2009, when 50 went to war with Rick Ross, who was a Def Jam artist, rumors circulated that Jay-Z gave Ross the green light to diss him. That only reinforced 50's belief that Jay was quietly working against him while pretending neutrality. Years later, after Kanye interrupted Taylor Swift at the VMAs to praise Beyonce, 50 commented that something like that would never happen if he was on stage. Jay responded in an interview by saying no one is afraid of 50, a statement that seemed unnecessary and oddly specific. 50 took that as another sign of underlying tension, questioning why Jay felt the need to clarify something no one had even asked. 50 has also repeatedly claimed his global popularity surpasses Jay-Z's, arguing that while American audiences can be influenced by marketing budgets, international fans respond more organically. He's pointed to his sales numbers outside the US as proof, emphasizing that albums like Get Rich or Die Trying and The Massacre moved millions worldwide. In his mind, that difference explains why Jay focused on building institutional power rather than competing head-to-head musically. He's even gone as far as calling Jay someone who avoids direct beef, choosing safety over confrontation. That attitude carried into 2017, when Jay-Z released 444. 50 reviewed the album in his usual unfiltered way, calling it golf course music and suggesting it catered to a high society audience rather than the streets. He joked that listening to it felt like you were supposed to be wearing glasses, a polo shirt, and carrying water around your waist. His critique wasn't just about sound, it was about relevance. According to 50, rap has an expiration date, and once new generations arrive, older artists need to step back instead of lecturing from above. Despite all this, 50 has occasionally softened his tone in interviews, insisting there's no real beef, just history and perspective. But that stance seems temporary. In more recent conversations, he's openly labeled Jay-Z a hater again, particularly in relation to the Super Bowl situation and Jay's association with Diddy.
50 has repeatedly implicated that Jay isn't as neutral as he claims when it comes to Diddy's controversies, even posted edited movie clips suggesting deeper involvement. While none of that is proven, the implication alone keeps the narrative alive. At this point, the relationship between 50 Cent and Jay-Z exists in a strange space, not full-blown war, not true peace either. It's a long, unresolved power struggle fueled by ego, history, industry politics, and clashing philosophies about success. One man built his empire by mastering institutions and alliances. The other built his by challenging them publicly and surviving the fallout. And as long as 50 keeps talking, trolling, and poking at old wounds, this story isn't going anywhere. If you want to dive deeper into the darker side of the music industry and the figures who really pull the strings behind the scenes, subscribe and check out the next video on the most terrifying label bosses in hip-hop history. It adds a whole new layer to everything you just heard.